blog, Melly Sews, and designer at Blank Slate Patterns. Today I'm going to show you how to make a really easy two-sided baby blanket. I've got regular fabric here and fleece for the backing. We're going to be sewing these two together. All you need to do to start with is make sure that both fabric pieces are the same size and they are square. I used 1 yard of fabric for each of these and then cut that into 36 inches square. You have to do that because most fabric is at least 44 inches wide. Fleece is often 60 inches wide, and so you're going to have to square off those edges to get it to be 36 inches or 1 yard all around. Once you've got your two fabrics cut to the same size, it's really simple. All you're going to do is place them right sides together, and then starting on one edge, we're going to be sewing around all four edges of this blanket, leaving a hole to turn the blanket right side out. Let's get started at the sewing machine. Because a lot of fleece has a little bit of stretch to it, you're going to want to have the fleece against the feed dog side of your sewing machine. That'll help keep everything evenly feeding, and it will help keep the fleece from growing longer than the top fabric, which sometimes can happen when you're sewing something with stretch to something that is woven. So I've got my edges lined up here, and I am just going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance and start with a regular stitch, sewing right down the edge of my fabric. As we get to a corner, let me show you what to do. You're going to stitch until you're within a 1/2 inch of the corner, stop with your needle down, pick up your presser foot, and you're going to turn your fabric so that you can start sewing down the next edge. Alright, let's leave our hole for turning. I like to do this on a straight edge, not too close to the corner. I just find it's easier once I turn it to get the hole closed up if it's on the straight part and not near the corner. So all I'm going to do is go ahead and cut my thread, and then I'm going to lift my presser foot. I'm going to slide the fabric, leaving about 3 inches, enough for my hand to get through to turn. And then I'm going to put the presser foot back down and continue to sew. When you get back to the corner where you started to sew, you're just going to go ahead and continue to sew, and you're going to sew right over that corner. You'll cross your first line of stitching. Because these two lines of stitches crossed for 1/2 inch each, there's no need to back stitch here. So I've got my blanket. It's sewn together with one fabric on one side and fleece on the other. What I need to do next, before I turn this right side out, is to clip the corners. So to clip the corners, what I'm going to do is take my scissors, and I'm just going to cut through the corner very close to the stitching line, but not through it. I'll do that on each corner. What clipping the corners does is make sure that when you turn this blanket right side out, you'll have actual corners and not just an area with a bunch of bunched up fabric from that excess fabric that was in the corner. Now we're going to turn our blanket right side out. So go ahead and find the space you left where you didn't sew so that you can turn the fabric. You'll stick your hand through it, grab the opposite edge of the blanket, and pull. Continue working on it until the whole blanket is right side out. At each corner, make sure to take a little bit of time to turn the corner all the way out. And now I've got my blanket turned right side out. I do still need to finish that hole though from where I turned the fabric. And in order to do that, I'm actually going to top stitch all the way around the whole edges of the blanket. That's going to leave a nice finish, and it's going to close up that hole without me having to do any hand sewing. I like to start this step on the edge where I turned the fabric and have the hole to close up, which of course is going to be the last edge that I look for. Make sure that your fabric edges are in towards each other, and you may even want to add a few pins here so that you know that this edge is the edge that needs to be closed, that was not sewn together already. I'm going to line my fabric up in the machine, and I'm just going to start right in the middle of that edge. I'm going to move my needle over to the left so that I have, over to the right so that I have more of the fabric under my feed dogs as I stitch. And then again, I'm just going to stitch through both layers. I'm going to make sure that the seam edges are aligned and not like folded in towards themselves more. I want a nice straight clean edge. If you're having a hard time with your edges not wanting to stay even, you may want to press this whole blanket before you sew. But right now this is working okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and sew, closing up that hole. When you get back close to where you started sewing this top stitching, you're going to just continue to sew, making sure that you've lined up your top stitching lines in case they got uneven, and then make sure to overlap your original stitching by about an inch or so. Then you can go ahead and cut your thread, trim off any loose threads on there, and definitely make sure to remove your pins. And then you've got a really nice, good weight, fleece-backed blanket.